Greetings and thank you for joining us on You and Your Money. I'm Bryan Hirsch. This evening we are delving into the realms of retirement and financial planning. Quality financial planning plays an important role in one's life. The process and disciplines are to provide the foundations for the future financial stability of individuals and their families. Unfortunately, negative global news often appears to affect investment decisions. Good financial planning is about concentrating on the long term and not allowing any negativity to impact on the process. And joining me this evening is Polissa Dube. She's Wealth Manager at Centillion Wealth Advisory Services. Polissa was Financial Planner of the Year in 2022. She has a BCom Investment Management degree and she's accredited CFP. She has an advanced diploma in Trust and Estate Administration and Financial Planning. Polissa, good to have you on the program.
Always lovely to be here. Thank you, Bryan.
Polissa, looking at what's happening, this fear and greed syndrome that concerns people. Yeah. And you know, you as a financial planner are there to advise. I mean, I always say financial planners have three roles. You act as a financial planner. Some of the clients take your advice, some don't. Some take some of your advice. Then you're a financial nanny. People say, Polissa, just tell me what to do. And today, you can't just tell people what you've got to do, because in terms of phase, we've got to make sure they understand. And then today, particularly, today being Monday the 5th, you've got to be a bit of a financial psychologist, because the markets are really having a terrible time. They're collapsing all over the place and people start to panic. So how do you deal with those two elements, fear and greed, in putting together a financial plan and ensuring that people understand not to panic in what they're doing?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's natural to feel some fear. As a human being, we always want to preserve ourselves, right, and our safety and all of that. And so if something happens in the markets particularly, because now it affects your money, that's a bit adverse. It's natural that you would feel, as an investor, you'd be fearful and you'd want to protect whatever's left. Greed also on the other end of the spectrum is also natural. If something is going well, you want to have more of it. So I think as financial planners, and in fact in our practice, we start the process right at the beginning with that conversation around fear, around greed. Firstly, we want to understand where are we going, because that's what a financial plan is, right? What are we trying to achieve for you? So then we can put together a strategy. But then we need to have a conversation around your emotions. That fear and greed, because it can cause havoc in an investment portfolio. So we need to understand when the pressure's on, how should we expect you to react as Bryan? And there's various tests and quizzes that we put our clients through to facilitate the conversation. In fact, I think it's also worthwhile right at the beginning of the relationship to already firstly, build the expectation or explain to a client, how do we expect your portfolio to perform over time? And if there is an adverse event in the markets, how would it typically impact your portfolio, and what will we be doing at that point in time? What is the conversation that I'm going to have with you? And I think that's where that nanny conversation that you're talking about.
You use the lovely word, over time.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different understanding of time.
Yeah.
I've told the story often, and I'll just repeat it. My grandmother got a phone call from her bank manager. As the bank managers look in the bank account, they see no money's moved for a long time, and they phoned and said, we'd like to send a financial advisor around. And my grandmother said, well, let me explain to you. My grandson's in the business, and he always talks about short, medium, and long term. Yeah. Short term for me is a week, medium term's 2 weeks, and long term's 3 weeks. You see, I am 99. And then I had a young a client of mine brought a young grandson in who's just starting to earn money. And when I asked him his time horizon, he told me short term is Monday, Tuesday, medium term is Wednesday, Thursday, and long term is Friday and the weekends. So everyone's got a different understanding of time. And it's that, people tell you, I've got a time horizon 5 to 10 years, and then 6 weeks later or 3 months later into the program, they start to worry. But it's that conversation that's very important.
It's very important because it's based, we base our strategy on that. What are we trying to achieve over time? And I think it's important for the viewers to understand also there's a difference between, if you've got short-termism and you see movements in the market and you want to take advantage of that, we call that speculating. We might as well even call it gambling. There's a difference between gambling, speculating, and investing. So when we are structuring a portfolio, we are doing it for the long term. There's certain returns that we expect, or we expect that portfolio to behave a certain way. And so this is the conversation that you'll be having with your financial planner over time. So it's certainly a long-term play.
And how are you dealing with increased life expectancy? Because all of a sudden people are living that much longer.
Yeah.
We've got the challenges of longevity, and we've got the challenges of inflation, the concerns of when will money run out. I mean, in years gone by, 75, 80, 85. Today, I mean, the Queen, or not, that's a slip of the tongue, the King doesn't send out telegrams any longer when people turn 100. There's just too many people turning 100.
Exactly. I read a study actually recently by the World Health Organization to say that people born in the middle income type of range are more than 50% likely to live beyond 100. So we do have to incorporate that in our financial plans, and a good financial plan takes into consideration what we expect inflation will be over time. And again, it's very difficult to foretell some of these things, and so that's why a financial plan is not just set today and we forget about it. We need to be revisiting it on a continuous basis so that we can change these important variables. It's you're absolutely right as well. If we are living longer, it means that we run the risk of the money that you've accumulated, your retirement pot, you outliving that retirement pot. So how do we make sure that that money lasts you? And I think the principles are really, they stay constant, Bryan. We have to advise our clients, firstly, to start early, putting away money towards your retirement. Understand that when you are changing jobs, there are options. The legislation is changing now to aid that process. But if you're going to take out from your retirement fund, just understand that you are taking from a pot that's already not enough. And so if you keep taking from it when you change jobs, with now the two-pot retirement system that's coming into play, if you're going to keep withdrawing from it, you simply run the risk of not having enough. And then if you're going to live longer, there's only so much we can do.
I mean, the amazing thing is people are actually living longer now in the number of years they started saving, even if they started at age 30, 35. That's already too late. So you make the point about starting earlier, but talk to a young person of 23, 24, start talking about retirement. They've been out of school 5 or 6 years, maybe university a year, and you're really talking about 40 years' time. But you touched on the two-pot system, so let's go there. I am dealing on radio tomorrow morning on that two-pot system. I'm spending my whole program tomorrow dealing with it. But let me ask you, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but I want to ask you, how do you feel about it? I mean, you made the comment, if people start drawing money from their funds, and by the way, I'm not sure that everyone understands preservation. Because up to now, people have been used to, if you leave your job, you can withdraw the funds. Not the right thing to do. Obviously, we want to preserve it. But you've been able to now, under the two-pot system, 2/3, you're not going to be able to withdraw. It doesn't affect people over the age of 55.
That's right.
But certainly under 55, they're going to have to be reserved. But the one thing is, firstly, what impact will it have at retirement? And then I've got 2 other questions I'm going to ask you. So let's just confine it just to the questions rather than whether it's a good, but it's got a major impact in retirement if people start drawing.
Yeah, we've been talking about the two-pot retirement system for so long, and you expect that people understand it now, but there are really so many misconceptions out there. We're seeing people rushing to retire, some withdrawing from their funds because they are afraid that the preservation clause is going to affect them adversely. Firstly, it's important to understand that the new law kicks in on the 1st of September 2024, and it'll apply to money that goes into your retirement fund beyond that date. So in other words, all the monies that you've accumulated so far up until the 31st of August, the rules as we know them and understand them today are going to remain. So there's really no reason for people to be rushing, and withdrawing and all. And as you rightfully say, if you're 55 years and older, if you were 55 in 2021, this new system doesn't apply to you. So please get the information from the right sources and ask the questions so that you understand. Now, preservation, Bryan, yes, you're right. 2/3 of your contributions into a retirement fund going forward are going to go into the retirement fund, and yes, you'll only be able, or retirement pot, and you'll only be able to access that at retirement. So if you change jobs, even with the annual withdrawals, that part of your retirement fund you won't be able to access. How do I feel about the two-pot retirement system? I think, well,
it's actually 3 pots, isn't it? Because
well,
pot 1 is the old money.
Don't start counting the pots now, because there's actually, I've counted up to 5.
Oh, you got 5 pots. Yes, because people over 55.
Exactly. So I guess, like everything else, there's pros and cons to it. Pros in that we've now realized over time the extent to which people have gone to access their retirement funds because they are trying to, kill a fire that's going on right now, not realizing that there's one that's waiting for them down the line. So I guess there's a place for the system to enable retirement fund members to access money when there's a financial emergency. But on the other end, it's also helpful in that it's now almost going to, and I hope we're not becoming a nanny state, but it's really, pushing people towards preserving, because unfortunately that's not an option that was readily exercised in the past. So what effect will that have? It'll help us in the long run to be able to save towards retirement, so that there is a bit of a kitty waiting for you once you retire.
Although if you take money out, and the first stage is you're allowed 10% in the previous money, a one-off draw up to a maximum of 30,000. But if you take money out, it's going to, if people aren't saving, the statistics are so few people can retire.
Right, yeah.
And now if only 2/3 of what your future contribution is going to be invested, the 1/3 you can withdraw on a yearly basis. That means that you're actually only saving 2/3. It's going to have an impact. Do people understand the tax consequences?
I don't think they do. But firstly, just to clarify the 10% one, because I think that's also the major disappointment in the market. People think 10%, 10%. The rule is the maximum or the lesser of 10% and 30,000 Rand. Okay? Yeah. So in other words, even if you have a huge retirement fund, come the 1st of September, you'll only be able to access 30,000 Rand. Do they understand the tax implications? Now remember, yes, the Treasury is trying to give people access to their retirement funds if there's a financial emergency, but this is by no means meant to replace an emergency fund. It's not meant to work like a credit card money that you can just access whenever. And so that's why the tax around it is so punitive. You'll be taxed at your marginal tax rate. So in other words, at the same rate that your salary is taxed at.
Actually higher, police, because it's going to add to your salary.
Exactly.
And you're going to probably go into another band.
Exactly. You can only withdraw once a year. So yes, the access will be made available, but it's got restrictions that you need to understand.
Well, we're going to take a short break. When I come back, I have got 1 or 2 questions on the two-pot system, and I'll be putting those to Palissa. Stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.